Squid Game's get rich or die trying premise is brutal, and today we're bringing that premise down to the place it makes the most sense. The underworld, baby!
Welcome to the Hazbin Hotel, a misguided path to redemption!
Which members of Hazbin Hotel's ensemble cast would compete valiantly in the rounds of Squid Game? I'm Keefe Nossi with Wicked Binge, and today we're deciding which Hazbin Hotel character would win Squid Game. Some extra ground rules for this competition. We'll allow the characters to use their powers, but with two stipulations. 1. Players are not allowed to attack each other unless the game or event specifically permits them to do so, and 2. Players will not be allowed to use powers that make them invincible for any given round, most notably no levitation in the Glass Stepping Stones challenge. Today's competitors are Charlie, Alistair, Vaggie, Angel Dust, Husk, Nifty, Serpentious, Frank, Cherry Bomb, Lucifer, Velvet, Vox, Valentino, Carmilla, Zestial, Razzle, Dazzle, Katie Killjoy, Tom Trench, Adam, Loot, Sarah, Emily, Mimsy, and Rosie. We're sparing Fat Nuggets and Kiki due to them being the least powerful and intelligent of the pets we've seen so far, and we simply don't have the heart to do them like that. Without further ado, it's an especially dangerous day in hell. Time to get started with the first game, Red Light, Green Light. Red Light, Green Light is a game that's all about speed and sharp listening skills. The goal is to make it to the finish line as fast as you can. However, if a player is too focused on the finish line to realize when a red light is coming up, or if they easily panic and accidentally move or stumble when they're supposed to be frozen, this game could spell their doom. Or a sequel to it in most of these guys' cases. Speed, stamina, and stability are key here, which means Angel Dust is going to be just fine. He's got strong senses and incredible flexibility, which will make getting to the finish line safe and sound relatively easy for this self-proclaimed celebrity. Serpentious and Frank would thrive here as well. Although Frank, like the other Egg Boys, is the furthest thing from stable or intelligent, Serpentious has a power that would help quite a bit, Hypnosis. While he only uses it once in episode 2, it was shown to briefly stun Angel Dust in self-defense. With this power, Serpentious would be able to keep his buddy from losing early. As for Serpentious himself, he's a snake, so he's able to move smoothly. Let's not forget how quickly he reached his airship in the finale to try and save his friends, after all. Lastly, Razzle and Dazzle are Charlie's royal steeds for a reason. We wouldn't be surprised if they crossed the finish line before the first red light. But while most of the group won't struggle too much here, there are a few losers, baby, this round. Tom Trench is the first to go. Let's be real, this guy can't catch a break, no matter the situation. If he's not having scalding hot coffee poured onto his crotch by Katie, he's getting shoved away from the camera, also by Katie.
Suck it up, you little bitch.
But all you Tom Trench fans, all, like, 3 of you, can rejoice in Katie Killjoy's early elimination. We can't imagine Katie ignoring Tom during the competition given just how much she enjoys bullying him on camera, but while this might lead to her getting Tom out early, it'd also lead to some delays for her and perhaps even some payback from Tom. Even if she doesn't get killed by a red light though, the time limit would probably catch up with her. The last loser of this round is Mimsy. Being a total attention hog who gets herself into constant trouble with dangerous criminals, it's not much of a stretch to imagine that Mimsy would assume the rules of the game don't apply to her. Sorry Mimsy, but Alistair can't help you this time. 22 of our original 25 competitors remain, and now it's time for our next game, Popki, or Honeycomb. The Honeycomb game requires patience and a steady hand to cut out a shape from a fragile but tasty cookie. Too much shaking or pressure could cause a fatal break. As such, these citizens of the afterlife will need to have enough focus and precision to poke out their shape without accidentally breaking it. Zestial won't have any problems with this simple game. This overlord's been around for centuries, much longer than anyone else we've met in hell so far. His extensive experience has given him an unmatched composure, so carefully cutting out a cookie won't be an issue for him. Given her enthusiasm with knives, Nifty is also a shoo-in. Her rambunctious personality might be an obstacle to overcome here, but we doubt Nifty will fail this round. She's been shown to follow instructions pretty well when she's on the clock. Finally, Lucifer is another character who's good with small tools. If his prowess at making rubber ducks is any implication, that is. This will be child's play for him. There are some unfortunate losses this round, though. Razzle and Dazzle sadly depart here. Having the intelligence of your typical pets, it's honestly pretty likely they'd eat the cookies before the round even starts. Unfortunately, even if they resist the urge, their lack of opposable thumbs would make this challenge practically impossible. If it makes you feel any better, just imagine how easily they'd be able to fly away upon disqualification. Frank, you were too good for this world. He may have the opposable thumbs, but, well, the Egg Boys aren't exactly known for their precision nor tact. But if these second round eliminations are getting too sad, rest easy. Valentino's also out. Val tends to throw temper tantrums whenever he doesn't get his way, and he really doesn't seem like the kind of guy to do anything practical by himself. You're free, Angel. That is, if you survive 5 more challenges. Good luck, pal. That's 4 more down and 18 left to go. Following the Honeycomb game, it's time to let Hell's chaotic nature shine in the Midnight Brawl. Lack of food and sleep, plus the stress of staying alive, or undead, staying whatever they are, can drive any person to the point of violence. In this game, it's every player for themselves. To survive this game, a person must be either strong enough to fight or clever and sneaky enough to hide. Let's start with the valiant fighters. Carmilla will stop at nothing to protect herself and the people she cares for. With the help of Zestial, it's unlikely that anyone would even dare to mess with them, except for maybe Adam and Loot, but the latter would surely talk some sense into him and they can hold their own. Vaggy's training with Carmilla will help her survive and thrive in this round, and finally the explosive Cherry Bomb will be more than capable of defending herself. As for stealthy players, Nifty's small stature would make her difficult to find, and her habit of sneaking up on people could come in handy too. There are some eliminations this round though, and some of them are pretty rough. Velvet is admittedly the least sympathetic of them. There's simply no doubt that her attitude would have made her some enemies by now, and since she doesn't seem as physically powerful as many of the other characters, our bets are that she'd be the first one taken out.
Fine. Safe travels back to the nursing home, fuckers.
Emily, to put it bluntly, would never be able to bring herself to hurt somebody. Her emotions would be absolutely fried at this point, so this elimination is almost merciful and would more than likely come from a sacrificial attempt to protect someone else. Speaking of which, Serpentius also goes this round. While his skill set would make him a valiant fighter, he's among the least likely to be willing to actively harm someone else after his time at the hotel.
What did you just say to me, you fried chicken fetuses?
Given how he won't hesitate to attack to protect his friends and how quickly Adam vaporized him, our favorite rehabilitated reptile isn't making it past the brawl. And while this might cause a riot in the comments section, our final elimination this round is Charlie. Seeing the main character go before we're even halfway through the competition is rough, but the fact is that out of all the remaining characters, Charlie is the one who most falls into the category of a peacekeeper. Sure, she's willing to fight when there's no other option, but her general naivete and good nature would probably result in her trying to convince the other competitors to stop fighting, which, in the setting of Squid Game, just wouldn't work. Reaching the middle of the games, it's time for another strength-based round, Tug of War. Unlike in the actual Squid Game, we aren't going to assign characters to specific teams. Instead, we're simply going to judge them based on their abilities and likelihood to survive. To win Tug of War, you don't just need strength, you also need strategy and a willingness to work with others. Even weaker players have a shot at surviving if they can coordinate properly with stronger players. Everyone's favorite mighty radio demon won't have a problem here. What Alistair lacks in physical strength, which really isn't much, he makes up for with his suave nature and persuasion.
I will tear your soul apart.
He's got Husk and Nifty on his side already, so there's no shot that he'll be low on allies. Husk and Nifty are safe too, by extension. In fact, just about everyone this round is a pretty strong competitor, huh? There are a few characters from Heaven who could team up with immense power, but they'd be just about evened out by the strength of the many residents of Hell remaining, especially with the likes of heavy hitters like Zestial, Lucifer, and Carmilla. There is just one we can honestly say we see being eliminated this round, and that's Vox. As much as we'd like to have him compete longer, Vox is shown to have very little skill in cooperation with anyone outside of the V's, who, aside from him, have already been eliminated. And let's face it, no matter the odds, Vox would rather die than team up with Alistair now.
Now that's good television!
We finished off Tug of War with an unlucky number of 13 very lucky contestants remaining. Up next we have the Marble Game. Marbles is an interesting one. At least in the context of Squid Game, there are multiple ways for pairs of players to play their marble game. They could focus on accuracy or how far they can roll their marble, or they can simply guess how many marbles are in their opponent's hand. As such, there are multiple ways to win, with most of these ways relying on either skill or luck. Of course, if you don't have the skills to win and you're not looking to make a life or death bet, there's always manipulation. Also, like with the Tug of War game, we won't be focusing on pairing certain characters off into teams. Instead, we'll just consider which characters have the overall best skill sets and which ones are more likely to fall behind. Alistair is once again a great competitor for this game. Given how he seems to usually be 3 steps ahead of his opponents, and even his allies to an extent, we're sure he'd come up with a game plan he'd get an easy win from. Husk knows how to gamble and how to swindle when the situation calls for it, and we imagine he'd be smart enough to team up with someone other than Alistair this time around, so we're gonna give him our blessing to move on. Vaggy is also a standout in this round. While no doubt reeling from Charlie's departure, Vaggy's always been portrayed as the more skeptical of the two, and she's deceptive when the situation calls for it. It won't be easy for her to get tricked, and she could definitely trick someone else. Now, since this is the marbles round, we need to eliminate about half of the remaining competitors, and since it's an uneven number, we'll settle for 6 this time around. First up, we have Sarah. This might be a surprise, but at this point, Sarah's the only character remaining aside from Adam who's a Heaven Dweller. While she's been shown to hide tough decisions from her people, she doesn't seem like the type who would be willing to cheat her way into a win, and given the more shady, dishonest characters surrounding her, that makes her a prime target. Nifty is the next to go. She's been lucky enough to make it pretty darn far, but we have a feeling she'll be the one taking this game the least seriously. We could totally see her teaming up with Husk or Alistair, then immediately getting distracted by a dead cockroach in the corner. For all his skills, Adam's larger-than-afterlife ego would make him a prime target for the swindling tendencies of characters like Husk or Alistair. As a result, man falls once again. For our last 3 eliminations this round, there's Cherry Bomb, Angel Dust, and Rosie. We're mentioning them all together because we don't really have one specific reason why they're being eliminated. The other characters are simply either more skillful, intelligent, or manipulative. We're down to our final 7, and just in time for one of this competition's deadliest games, Glass Stepping Stones. This game is another tricky one for a hypothetical scenario, as much of this game relies on luck. There is one strategy to it, however, that being the advantage of going last after some glass pieces have already been broken. As such, those who have a big enough ego to want to try it first will seal their own doom. Lucifer is the most egotistical of the remaining cast members, which will spell his doom here. It's a shame, really. If it weren't for our no flying / rigging the games rule, he'd probably win the whole thing, but if it's any comfort, he'd probably go out stylishly. But if anyone might insist on going sooner, it's Loot. In her case, the loss isn't due to ego nor even lack of judgment, rather, it's because Loot, by this point, is likely fed up. There's no doubt that she's ready to be done with this game now, especially being fresh from losing her buddy Adam again. Poor Loot. Speaking of which, Vaggie unfortunately won't make it any further either. Intelligence aside, Vaggie is a prime target for Loot, one of the fiercest competitors remaining. She'd surely understand that this game is more important, but Loot's hostility would definitely be a distraction. While he's a lot more cautious, Husk is also done for here. Being that his soul is owned by Alistair, it's not unlikely that the good old radio demon would send him ahead to check and see if everything's on the up and up.
Big talk for someone who's also on a leash.
Speak of the Radio Devil, Alistair just barely misses out of the top 2. This may be controversial, but of the 3 non-eliminated competitors at this point, Alistair is easily the most unstable of the bunch. It's possible he could overthink his next move in a desperate bid to survive, and we could only see that manifest in him either choosing to go first to have better chances, or going around the middle so as to remain neutral. In any case, he loses out to 2 more cool-headed overlords who have a deep camaraderie to boot, which will make for a tough finale. Today's gut-wrenching final battle is between dear friends Carmilla and Zestial. Just like in the show, our final challenge will be a one-on-one duel in the titular Squid Game. In this game, 2 opponents must go up against one another, with one acting as a defender and the other as an attacker, with the attacker doing everything they can to reach the top of the court, or the squid's head, and touch it with their foot, with the defender doing whatever they can to stop them, or at least that's how Squid Game is traditionally played. Here, though, it's more of a battle to the death type of deal. With Zestial and Carmilla being as close as they are, we feel they'd make it to the finale with good cooperation skills, and in the previous game, an agreement to stay behind to keep each other relatively safe. Pitting them against each other is a pretty cruel move, which we really are sorry about, by the way, and it would surely cause some anguish in both of them, but they'll understand that it's everyone for themselves at this point, which leads into each character's skills. Carmilla is by far the character we've seen more of, and she has a plethora of skills and powers, from a huge arsenal of angelic weapons and proficiency at using them to excellent fighting skills, even down to incredible dance moves. She's sure to put up a fight like no other. She also has a family back home, 2 daughters she loves more than anything, and she would stop at nothing to protect them. But then we have to consider Zestial, who despite his minimal screen time is known to be the oldest overlord.
Follow in silence if you value your shell.
It's reasonable to assume that he's got just as many powers and talents as Carmilla, if not more so. We've also seen that he can conjure objects out of thin air, which would no doubt be helpful. It's reasonable to assume that Zestial could win this if he wanted to. Here's how we see it. Zestial worked with Carmilla, being willing to use his powers, intellect, and even a bit of treachery to get this far. He could deceive Carmilla, or maybe even best her in combat, but being the caring friend he is, knowing Zestial, it was more to ensure that his friend, and by extension her daughters, would be kept safe. So, while the audience waits for a fight, they and Carmilla will be amazed at the sight of Zestial surrendering so that his friend can live alongside her daughters another day. Carmilla is the winner of Hazbin Hotel's Squid Game. So now somebody pass me those tissues for unrelated reasons.